Astrea's Broken Heart, Episode 1, A New Start. And now for the latest news. Infamous Goodlam Psychiatric Clinic has reopened its door. As you may recall, a patient was brutally attacked by his attending physician within its walls. The judge's lenient sentence led to outrage in the local community. A month after the terrible event, the victim is still in a coma. We tried to contact his attacker, but unfortunately, her current locations remain unknown. Excuse me, could you turn off the radio? The driver obediently complied, but the blissful silence was short-lived. I'm sure she already fled the country. She almost killed a man, and they took away her license and gave her a fine. How is that fair? God, you won't shut up, will you? Of course it isn't fair. For all we know, she's beating another patient with a paperweight as we speak. The driver nodded meaningfully, looking at her in the rearview mirror. That's why I don't go to therapists. I don't want to end up with a messed up shrink like that. If you only knew that messed up shrink from the news is sitting right behind you. As the silence went on, her mind returned to her personal nightmare. Audrey kept her eyes on her patient, feeling for the phone. A perfectly healthy guy experiencing the loss of a loved one had suddenly started showing signs of acute psychosis. Admit it, Doctor. You come into my dreams every night on purpose, don't you? Do you like it when I hurt you? I can see that you do. Audrey made an effort to speak calmly and slowly, concerned that he might move from words to actions. We should call a nurse into the office and talk through this. No! The beast is already on your doorstep. Can't you hear it breathing? It has come for you. He jumped out of his chair, throwing the coffee table against the wall as if it weighed nothing, and attacked the psychologist. His fingers closed around her neck with so much force that a scream of horror remained trapped in her throat. The choice you make now will change the course of the story. Some choices alter the story slightly, while others lead to big changes. If I don't do something right now, he'll kill me. Well, we can't scream, even though it's a scream for help. Defend yourself with a paperweight. Defend yourself with a letter opener. While groping for the phone that had slipped from her hands, her fingers landed on a fallen paperweight. She immediately hit the patient with it. Blood ran down his face in a thin stream, but he didn't seem to even notice. There's no time left. It's already here. Do you feel now, Audrey? We're here, miss. The gruff voice pulled Audrey out of her memories. She picked up her small travel bag and stepped out of the car. After paying the driver, she approached the mansion. However bad Astrea Detective Agency's reputation might be, hers was now decidedly worse. Just to be sure, Audrey took another look at the newspaper clipping with the listing. This was the right place. Okay, here goes nothing. But she didn't get the chance to ring the bell. The door burst open, almost knocking her off her feet. A young man appeared in the doorway. Who are you? I'm Audrey, a psychologist. I called about the opening for a psychological evaluator. Psychologist, huh? He looked her up and down, his gaze sharp. You probably talked to Mikhail. He should have saved you the time and told you right then we need someone serious. Do you interview all of your applicants on the doorstep? Maybe you could begin by introducing yourself? I don't see the point. I'm sure you'll be gone by the time I get back. Our work is difficult. It's not just shuffling papers around all day. Sometimes you have to stand up for yourself. The pool of blood on the floor flashed before her eyes. Well, it's up to you. Second door to the right, the boss's office. He's running late. You'll have to wait for him there. Without waiting for an answer, he hurried down the steps and walked away. Audrey went deeper into the house. Sitting in a leather chair, Audrey thought about her current situation. How did I get to this point? I'm trading a prestigious clinic for the shady agency. Audrey? A pleasant male voice roused her from the oppressive thoughts. I'm sorry to keep you waiting. My name is Raphael. We spoke on the phone. I am the director of this agency. Raphael held out his hand, and Audrey, struggling to suppress the nervous trembling that overcame her, shook it. His strong, friendly handshake reassured her a little. Good afternoon, Raphael. He slowly walked over to his desk and looked at her closely as if trying to read her thoughts. To be honest, your resume impressed me. Won't you get bored with a place like this? That's very generous. Not at all. You're a doctor, but we only need someone to conduct evaluations. Your qualifications far surpass our needs. So much so that you're prepared to reject me? I'm just curious, what brings you to us? The fact that I've been stripped of my medical license, leaving my career in shambles? Some choices increase faith, others skepticism. On the path of faith, Audrey will be open-minded. She's direct, honest, and open to compromise. Meanwhile, a skeptic expects an ordinary life free of miracles. She's cunning, sarcastic, and always stands her ground. Those are both good options. I can hardly tell him the truth. I believe the change will be good for me. This is how things turned out. I don't stop being a psychologist just because I'm no longer at a clinic. This is just how things turned out. To be honest, I had no intention of changing fields, but sometimes life doesn't take our plans into account. His thin, graceful fingers tapped the desk lightly. It would be foolish of me to talk you out of this job. But still, I must ask, do you know exactly what it is that we do here? You chase ghosts and your own shadows. And if my former colleagues are to be believed anyway. You study the nature of unusual psychological states. How delicate. He grinned, and for a moment Audrey feared she had voiced her thoughts aloud. Studying the human mind will be your task. Ours is finding traces of the supernatural. She found it hard to believe that this seemingly normal man was serious. I hope this is some kind of test. Experience of this kind may not make a great addition to your resume. I don't believe in the supernatural. All of your clients are still patients. That's true. I don't recall ever having a skeptic come to us. He raised an eyebrow and looked at his guest as if for the first time. His gaze lingered on her eyes with open curiosity. Countless tiny goosebumps prickled her skin. The coldness in his light gray eyes seemed to envelop her entire body. Unable to bear the stretching silence, she broke it. I hope that won't be a problem. No, not at all. Impartiality is just what we need. He tore his gaze away from her. His face once again took on an impassive expression. Tomorrow you will accompany David, our lawyer. His clients claims he's sharing his home with a demon. I think this case will help both of us reach a decision on further cooperation. His attention shifted to her travel bag. Tell me, where are you staying? Nowhere yet, but I think I'll find a hotel nearby. That will not be necessary. All the agency's employees live in this house. If that doesn't bother you, we will find a suitable room for you. If everyone in the house is as rude as the first guy I met, perhaps it would be better to rent a room elsewhere. As if reading her thoughts, he added, In any case, I won't rush you. You can rest in the guest room for the night. We will discuss everything in the evening, tomorrow. I'll call your new associate. He'll show you around. Miguel pressed a button on the phone. David, Come here, please. Is he the one I'll be handling tomorrow's case with? That's right. By the way, I think you will be interested in reviewing the details of the client's case. Just a minute, I'll find it. He took out a stack of thin folders. Realizing that the interview of sorts was over, she allowed herself to relax. Some choices can improve your relationships with other characters. I wonder how things work here. Watch him. He slowly sorted through the documents while she watched his fluid movements, his fingers, so graceful they barely touched the paper, with a quiet rustle, hypnotic and soothing. But her curious gaze slid higher to his sharp collarbone, almost completely hidden beneath his shirt. She took in his toned figure. All of his clothes fit so well that she felt self-conscious. I should have worn something nicer. She stole a glance at his face. It's like he stepped straight out of an old master's canvas. He was a picture of Renaissance beauty, fair skin, well-balanced features. His hair lay as if it just walked out of a salon. Not a single strand out of place. How does he pull that off? His fingers suddenly stopped, and Audrey was horrified to realize she'd been caught. How long did he know I was staring? Is something wrong? Some options can be purchased with diamonds. With me, definitely. Distract him. There's something in your hair. Compliment his appearance. Say you're tired. Distract him with conversation. Attempting to change the topic, Audrey blurted out the first thing that came to mind. I wanted to ask, do you often have encounters with the supernatural? In response, Mikhail lifted an impressive pile of folders. Constantly. And you are the only one with skills to prove that these are simply the imaginings of troubled minds. I hope your agency won't close down for my help. It won't, don't worry. He really seems to believe in all this. In which case, he's taking all my jabs in stride. You don't lose your temper easily. Would you like it if I did? A painful spark seemed to flash in the icy depths of his eyes for just a moment. That's not what I meant. Even more diamonds. You still have things to talk with. I don't know. It has a diamond thing with the thingy. It's gonna make me charge more. Oh. It's just gonna repeat the same thing over and over and again. Okay, alright. That's the first that's ever happened with this app. I'll go with compliment his appearance. It's not often that you meet young people who dress so formally. It's a bit unusual. We all try to maintain this style while working. Most of the time, you will be expected to dress accordingly. But in your free time, of course, you can wear whatever you please. Though I am always open to discussion. I don't see any problem with it. He set the folder aside and looked down at the next one. He shrugged his shoulders and seemed to relax a little in his chair. These unhurried moments pulled the fabric of a suit jacket tight over his prominent muscles. He's very fit for someone in this position. Chasing ghosts got you in this shape? She ended up staring, falling into the same trap again. She was greeted by his laughing eyes. Oh, so we can just keep going until we say, you're tired. Sorry, today was a rough day. I understand, no apology necessary. I should mind where I'm looking. And watch my language. Where the hell is David? Mikhail handed over the folder he'd finally found. You think we're a bunch of eccentrics chasing ghosts? But that's not the case. I don't... She felt a sudden need to justify herself, but he interrupted. Don't worry, you'll change your mind. You'll see. Not wanting to argue, she opened the folder. The title page bore the emblem of the local police force. These are police documents, aren't they? Yes. Perhaps you will get the chance to meet our correspondent there. Audrey raised an eyebrow in surprise. She knew that detectives from such agencies often worked for the police, but she had never seen it the other way around. What kind of agency is this? The police report to them. Quick steps came from the corridor. Well, where's my best partner yet? A guy with burning eyes stormed into the room. David, meet Audrey. I've been so glad to make someone's acquaintance. Instead of shaking hands, David gently pressed his lips to the back of her hand. I'll be waiting for you in my office tomorrow evening. I hope your answers will be a yes. David was already standing at the open door. Well, of course you'll say yes. We're going to have such a good time at this demon house, no doubt about it. Audrey nodded a goodbye to Mikkel and slipped out of his office. Grinning, David led her deeper into the house along a long, gloomy corridor. Getting to know a house should start with its heart, the fireplace. He pushed open the tall oak doors with both hands and stood aside, letting her enter first. They've done very well for themselves. Getting to know its inhabitants should start with me. I hope Mikkel's stuffy manners haven't spoiled your first impression. David let her pass the burning fireplace. He stopped behind the wide bar. Actually, my first impression wasn't of Mikkel. I ran into some guy at the front door. Ah, my sympathies. That was, Cassiel. Perhaps the worst possible option. What did he tell you? Nothing much, just hinted that your job is dangerous. Well, frankly speaking, it's his job to protect us from any threats. Don't be afraid, I won't let anything hurt you. David smiled radiantly and turned to a rack of all kinds of alcohol. Thanks, but I can take care of myself. The guy turned sharply and stared at her with curiosity. Is it so? Has that been unnecessary? The patient who attacked me ended up with a scar. He whistled and smiled approvingly. Oh, we'll have to tell Cassio to watch his tongue. Or not. He'll finally learn some manners. Some choices increase your reputation. A high or low reputation will dramatically change the plot of your story. 2 glasses clinked against the bar. Care to join me? He's talkative. I think I'll be able to get to know him better. Certainly. I think this was a great day for whiskey. And if you feel brave enough, I'll make you my signature cocktail. Ice cubes tapped against the walls of a glass. My colleagues rarely visit this part of the house. I hope the pervasive gloom won't get to you. David pushed a drink across the bar with a wolfish gleam in his eyes. Enjoy. The amber liquid pleasantly burned her throat. So, what brings you here, Audrey? Are you looking for answers to uncomfortable questions, or have you encountered something you can't explain? She took another sip, grimacing. You should have put skeptics need not apply in the listing to avoid misunderstandings. He let out a quiet, short laugh. I see, and let's talk about something else then. Ask me anything, Audrey, and I will answer honestly. Anything, he says. Ask him to talk about himself. Because people love doing that. Could you tell me a little bit more about yourself? And which part of my rich biography interests you? David let his elbows rest on the bars of setting in for a long story. I'd like to know more about who I'll be walking into a demon's lair with tomorrow. Are you afraid of demons? Well, I'll have nothing to fear with you around, right? You catch on quickly. From now on, I'll be your shield, not only on the battlefield, but also in this house, even in the courtroom, if you like. So, if one of our clients ever decides to sue you, I'll make sure everything works out. My throat tightened from a sudden spike of adrenaline. Too bad I had a lousy lawyer. David sensed a sudden change of mood and wiped the smile off his face. Hey, I'm serious, we're all good guys here. Casil included, although I understand that it may be hard for you to believe right now. She tried to compose herself, but had to force a smile. David caught her gaze, and Audrey could feel his sincerity when he spoke. When you decide to stay, Audrey, you'll see what I mean. Anything, he says. Ask him about his work. It's weird, he went from grinning to that twice. Oh, no, there it is again. How many cases have you lost? Of all the questions you could have asked, that's what you picked? Audrey, take a closer look at me. As though to help with this, and he leaned across the bar. He looked genuinely indignant, but his mocking eyes gave him away. He was so close that Audrey smelled a bitter blend of woody aroma mixed with whiskey. He whispered very softly, but Audrey caught every sound. I never lose. And I always get everything I want. Straightening out, David finished his whiskey in one gulp as though celebrating a courtroom victory. I feel like I could end up chatting with you until morning. Oh, always thinking about the job. Commendable. Well, in that case, I won't place any more further demands on your attention. Let's get you the best room. Mikhail said something about a guest room. David took the empty glasses away and beckoned her to follow. Leave the guest room for the guests. He led her along the already familiar corridor. Our bedrooms are on the first floor. Climbing the ornate staircase, Audrey felt a sense of déjà vu. The furniture was the same as on the ground floor, so you have several options to choose from. Audrey looked behind the door. We have the master bedroom, the best in the house, or the guest room. I'm not gonna lie. The master bedroom actually looks the best in my opinion. I could be wrong, let me know in the comments, but yeah, I'll go with master. It's also black. Not bad at all, cozy even. This one's good. Great. Make yourselves comfortable, Audrey. I'll check back in the evening. With a wink goodbye, David closed the door. Once she was alone, Audrey wondered if it was even worth unpacking her bag. However, she could unpack and repack things in less than 30 minutes. It probably looked like it ran away from home. Although perhaps it's true. Unsure of what to do with herself, Audrey went to the window. An overgrown Gothic garden perfectly complemented the mansion's oppressive atmosphere. Surely all this belonged to some earl or viscount. Patches of white caught her eye. Among the dense branches, glimpses of statues hidden by the foliage. It's silly to sit in this room all evening. I'll go for a walk in the garden. Audrey opened the door and listened. The silence beckoned her. Audrey slipped out into the corridor, quiet as a mouse. I hope I won't get lost. From somewhere in the distance, the faint, wistful cry of a violin suddenly pricked her ears. An irresistible urge drove Audrey towards the sound. The sensual melody led her to a door slightly ajar that opened into a spacious room. Trying not to reveal her presence, Audrey held her breath. Someone was standing by the window with his back to the door. The bow sliced through the air, flexing as it slid across the strings. The longer she stood behind this glorious creature, the more she felt she was trespassing on something sacred and intimate. She attempted a silent retreat back into the corridor, but the door creaked treacherously, alerting the room's occupant to the intrusion. The melody shrieked to a halt, and he whirled to face her. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. Caught. Audrey went closer. It's, all right. Sometimes I'm so absorbed in the music that other sounds don't reach me. He hastily put down the instrument and offered his hand. My name is Raphael, and you must be our new evaluator, Audrey. Nice to meet you, Raphael. David promised to introduce us at dinner, but I'm glad to meet you now. Are you a lawyer, too? I'm an appraiser. I deal with objects rather than people. So you assess their value? Their mystical value. Seeing the skepticism on his guest's face, he hastily changed the topic. Were you looking for someone, Audrey? Or were you just exploring the house? I was headed to the garden. It's visible from my bedroom window. Oh, it's a magical place. But don't wander too far. The garden is very old, and all the structures in it are quite dilapidated. Well, I won't keep distracting you. You can stay if you like. This is the sitting room, but not my bedroom. It's a shared space. It seemed that Raphael only offered to be polite. Something in his eyes made her stay, as though some kind of unspeakable melancholy was trapped within them. Then the violin tried to express the same feeling with its heart-rending melody. Since I'm staying, I should say something. Diamonds! Ask him to finish the song, share your dream of learning an instrument, praise his ability. I'm sorry that I interrupted you. The melody was charming. Please continue. It seemed Raphael had been waiting for this request. As soon as he held the violin again, all embarrassment disappeared from his face. The enchanting melody returned, and Audrey felt a long-forgotten sense of peace. The bow became an extension of his confident hand. The notes filled the room, displaced time. And when he gently lowered the violin, Audrey was surprised to find that it was getting dark outside. Playing for someone is an incomparable pleasure. He bowed and reluctantly returned the instrument to its stand. Thank you. That was incredible. Raphael wouldn't mind talking with you again. Since I'm staying, I should say something. Each person's like 120 diamonds, I'm just saying. You played beautifully. Did you study somewhere? I'm self-taught. Wow, learning the violin on your own must be difficult. I can play every instrument in the sitting room. It suddenly occurred to Audrey that the sitting room had the quality of a creative studio. Her eye caught on the luxurious grand piano she'd somehow overlooked. There was a double bass, a guitar, and other instruments she didn't recognize. Even a lifetime couldn't be enough to master all these instruments. Unless someone doesn't work at all. A little embarrassed, he looked away. I'm a fast learner. Since I'm staying, I should say something else. No, we're good. We praised his ability, we asked him to finish, and the conversation. I should go. It was nice meeting you. Of course. See you later, Audrey. Audrey froze for a moment, expecting to hear the violin again, but there was silence behind the door. As though lost in thought, Raphael was in no hurry to resume playing. He's Guys are also unusual, just like their line of work. Trying not to make a sound, she continued on her way. The paintings hanging on the walls of the corridor caught her eye. In one, Audrey saw men dressed in Victorian-style clothing. They must be the original owners of the estate. Audrey went closer to better see the aristocrats' faces, which were barely visible in the darkness. Doubting her own eyes, she leaned in until her nose almost touched the canvas. The painting depicted the mansion's current occupants. What in the world? Maybe they fancy themselves aristocrats? Or they dress like this for work? Forgetting about Raphael, Audrey trudged on until she finally reached the garden. At one point, its opulent design had probably set it apart, stimulating the imagination of its guests. But as time passed, its dominion went unchallenged. Nature modestly hid everything away beneath a verdant shroud. Small wonder all the structures are run down. Fascinated by her mysterious surroundings, she slowly moved deeper into the garden. If it weren't for the angel blocking her way, she felt she could have walked the overgrown path endlessly. The statue. The majestic, moss-covered statue seemed to be a warning against her going further, and she obediently stopped. She sat down on a marble bench intended for prayer and began to think. She thought about the topic she avoided categorically: God, and his role in her parents' lives. Wake up, sleepyhead. It's time for us to go to our Sunday service. The girl whined, diving headlong under the blanket. Oh, it's my only day off. Why can't I sleep in? You know what? I'm going to say it. Isn't God everywhere? Why go to church if he's here too? Honey, please don't start with this. Your father is a pastor. We are his flock. You must not forget this, my girl. I thought we were his family. We are all children of one big family, dear. Get up. Don't make me call your father away from his work. She peeked out from her hiding place with a glum look of resignation. She couldn't hide from her father no more than from God. Under a blanket, she knew that much for certain. I'll find a better hiding spot next time. An owl hooted nearby, hinting that it was time for the guest to leave. Shivering, she stood up and hurried back inside. A familiar silence filled the mansion, as though all its inhabitants had fallen asleep, or they are hidden away in their bedrooms to watch her from the windows. I'm becoming paranoid. She shook off the strange thought and walked a little faster towards the ornate staircase. All the doors were closed but one, which cast a sliver of light out into the corridor. Trying to sneak past unnoticed, Audrey walked on the balls of her feet. But when the warm glow fell on her face, curiosity took over. She froze, not daring to breathe, turned towards the light. The gap was no thicker than a finger, but it was enough to see whose bedroom it was. Casil was hunched over a desk. Taking some form of pleasure in the pain, he slowly wrapped his arm. This was not the first layer. A crisp white bandage coiled around his muscular shoulder. It snaked lower, tracing every contour. He doesn't seem half bad when he's busy and not speaking his mind. She found herself smiling, but she suddenly recoiled in horror, retreating into the shadows. Blood appeared on the fabric, slowly staining the bandage bright red. She backed towards the wall. She heard David's words in her head. It's his job to protect us from any threats. What is he protecting them from? What do these really come from, defending rather than attacking? Pulling herself together, Audrey returned to her room. So we're not going to get to know Cassiel. There was a tray with dinner on the bedside table. She had no appetite whatsoever. She quietly closed the door and looked around for the key to lock, but couldn't find it. Tomorrow I'll ask David to solve this problem. After changing in her own nightgown, Audrey went to bed. An endless, eventful day rewarded her with a headache and overwhelming fatigue. Therefore, when her mobile phone rang from the bottom of her bag, her first thought was just to ignore it. But a few seconds later, it rang again. Oh, who could need me this late? Hope it's a lawyer with good news. Late night calls are never good. Did someone give those nosy journalists my number? Maybe my old boss has come to his senses. It depends on how late it is. We'll play devil's advocate. Late night calls are never good. I hope no one has died, at least. Looking at the screen, Audrey sighed with relief. It was just her university friend. Is it true? Hello to you too, Ruth. Please tell me your colleagues were joking about you going to work for Astrea. They're out of their minds. You even know what they do. Ruth, please, my head is pounding. I'll tell you everything the next time we see each other, I promise. Just tell me you're okay. I'm fine, really. Sometimes there's a fork in the plot. The path you take depends on whether you're acclimated more faith or skepticism. And my colleagues are not out of their minds at all. A little strange, yes, but, I have a good feeling. Okay, I'm sorry. It's just so strange to hear you're involved with people who believe in completely ridiculous things. Maybe it's for the best, though. Maybe they'll help you come back to the church. Ah, of course. That's not gonna happen. I'm sorry, I'm really tired. Just don't disappear. I won't, I promise. Silencing her phone, setting aside, Audrey brought the blanket up over her head, just like when she had as a child. Pleasant darkness enveloped her, offering salvation and protection from the outside world. Exhausted, Audrey curled up and sank into its embrace. I have to agree with Audrey. Blankets over the head sometimes help. Not even kidding. Audrey followed the voice. It led her along the mansion's gloomy corridor to a battered old door. Audrey couldn't bring herself to open it, but she knew exactly where it led. A place smelling of damp, sweat, blood. The basement. Please, help me. Audrey bit the inside of her cheek until it hurt, holding back a scream. She took a step back. Don't go! Please don't go! Soft, protective darkness became oppressive. Audrey felt like she was suffocating. I beg you, help me, please! The scream was interrupted by a searing bright light. Audrey sat up, throwing off the heavy blanket. The nightmare lingered on her skin in the form of sticky sweat. Wake up, sleepyhead. Audrey blinked, not immediately realizing what was happening. Bright sunlight flooded the room, and in front of her, smiling widely, stood David. Still reeling from the dream, it took her a moment to cover herself with the sweat-soaked blanket. Well, partner, are you ready to start our first case? I like the artwork, the characters are interesting, the story is really interesting. 5 stars, why not? Thank you for rating us. So, we have 2 faith, 1 skepticism, 1 reputation, and 30 diamonds. Oh, you're not gonna give me diamonds for playing? How dare you! But, with that being said, thank you all for watching. So this is a brand new book that's been brought to the app. So, if you did enjoy, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Head down in the comment section, let me know what you thought, what you predict will happen from here on out. There are other chapters, I do believe, knock on wood, that are out, so I'll cover them as soon as possible, but let me know your thoughts. Also, head to the description, plenty of things to check out, ways to support, and ways to become more of a part of this community. Thanks for watching, catch you all later, peace out.